It's been a long, long, lonely winter. And the spring is here. It is spring, ladies and gentlemen. It is spring. It's all right. Ba-da-da-da, ba-da-da-da-da, ba-da-da-da. As you're coming into the room, if you can please identify yourself, share your name, where you are in the world, so we can get related to who we are and this global conversation.
Hi, everybody. I'm Kathleen, and I'm from Pennsylvania. Hi, Eduardo.
Hi.
Nice to see you.
Nice to see you.
Great to. Hi, everyone.
People as they're coming in. We're meeting people as they're coming in.
New York City.
We're having a little Beatles moment as people are coming on. May the medicine of Here Comes the Sun and the Beatles fill your heart and your soul in this moment. We're gonna slow down and come back in. I am so moved by this humanity that we have present on this call today. I just want to take a moment to express gratitude. My name is Eduardo Placer. For those of you who don't know me, I am the founder of Fearless Communicators, a dynamic international public speaking coaching business. And it is my privilege to hold space today with a colleague and a partner and also a client, co-facilitator, Dr. Kelly Jennings. So Kelly, do you just want to say hi briefly, unmute yourself?
Hello, everyone. So wonderful to be in this shared space together. And I am amazed at how technology can support us in feeling connected. So I'll say much for now.
I am present. I know we have people joining us definitely from all over the United States. I want to shout out Gina Yalamas, our urban shaman who is joining us from Sydney, Australia. Yes, Gina. There's also someone who posted that they were joining us. Sharon Harudi is in Tel Aviv. And then just all the various ways that we're interconnected to people all over the world. Sarika, I see your baby. Yes. Both of them. Yes, your two daughters. So before we begin and zoom into this conversation, I wanted to have a moment for people to take a moment and in the chat, perhaps set an intention for themselves, an opportunity to just connect, grounded, and set an intention for themselves in this conversation, in this listening, and be present in this. And then I'm going to pass it to Dr. Kelly Jennings.
Thank you, Eduardo. So the invitation is in the chat function to just set an intention. If you want to write that out loud on screen, so that we can really be present together in that way. I also just want to remind us, I know some of us are more familiar with Zooms. For some of us, this might be the first time. So just pay attention to your mute function. Eduardo and I will be sharing quite a bit in the beginning, and there will be an opportunity for questions and answers towards the end of this hour that we're together. So then we'll be able to unmute ourselves. But for the time being, just to hold this space together, we're going to have everyone muted.
And we're going to begin as we're setting intentions, and I'm seeing so much around love and to be calm, to strengthen our voices, connection and peace, compassion, to stay in the moment, strength, courage, gratitude, to be powerful, to find intention in how we're showing up to work in the moment, gratitude and peace. And before we jump into the content, I requested that Dr. Kelly lead us in grounding meditation, just to kind of really anchor us into our bodies and into this virtual space that we are creating collectively.
Beautiful. Thank you, Eduardo. So let's just take a moment. If everyone wants to just close your eyes, if you're able, or if you're not able to close your eyes because your eyes need to be with children, maybe just turn your gaze inward. And I invite us all to take a big collective breath together. And let's do this a couple of times. I'm aware that as I'm breathing the same air as each one of you. As we are human beings sharing this beautiful planet. And as we continue to be in the presence of our own breath, as we continue to be in the presence of our own internal space, I want to invite you, me, us, to become present to the space around. Become present to the space around you. Like a 360-degree awareness. Become present to the temperature on your skin. Become present to the top of the head. Become present to your seat. Become present to perhaps even to feel your skin breathing, which it does. And then I'm going to ask us to take this one breath further and to feel into the space in between us. And this would be an opportunity to open your eyes Just take a look. All human beings here sharing this beautiful planet. And sharing this moment together, this moment that has never happened before. What do we want to do with this moment, with this time we get to spend together? How will we be present, show up for this sacred and precious time? So, staying with this, I just want to acknowledge I'm living here on native land, here in the United States. But even before that, I just want to acknowledge our beautiful Mother Earth. And I want to acknowledge every single one of you, every lineage that you carry, and all the circles and communities that you're connected to. And particularly to welcome the children who are on the screen with us here. Thank you, Sarika, for sharing your children, really our future here.
Dr. Kelly, thank you so much for this grounding. We have a gesture in our Fearless Communicators world, which is called elevated sparkleation, right? So we will elevated sparklate you, Dr. Kelly Jennings, for that beautiful grounding in. And I must say the impetus for this whole conversation emerged from an email that I got from you. Initially, I think at the beginning of this outbreak, where you were speaking from your expertise as a medical professional, as a naturopathic doctor, speaking about the various different ways in which we can prepare ourselves beyond just washing our hands and practicing social distancing. And then you've continued to be a huge source for me of nourishing in understanding what else do we do beyond all the various ways that we have to take care of ourselves. I don't know about anyone else on this call, but I feel like I'm cycling in and out of moments of like pangs of like anxiety and fear. I wake up with, a really tight or a tightness in my chest. I live in New York City and I don't know when I'm going to be home again. I was out in San Francisco running one of our programs. I ended up in Boulder, Colorado at a retreat. And I felt really compelled to be here through the gratitude and generosity of some friends of mine to have access to mountains and trees and space. I may be going to Miami on Monday, possibly, if I don't stay up here in Colorado. So I don't know when I'm going to go home again. So there's just so much uncertainty in these times. And I've been looking at you, Dr. Kelly, as someone to continue to anchor in and be in communication with. And I thought of all the various people who we touch in our community, and imagine that I'm not alone in these feelings and these experiences. And wanted to create a platform to just share. To be in conversation, and that's where this emerged. So in conversation with Dr. Kelly, prior to this, just to give us a frame of where we're going in conversation together, there is a piece of this conversation we're going to begin is, I think, on the practical piece, right? Which is, on the medicinal piece, also holistic remedies, various ways that we can practice the boosting of our immune systems. And then the other conversation then moves on to the bigger conversation philosophically, spiritually, where we can be and how we can amplify that in this time as well. So I wanted to create that as a context. And that's what emerged for Dr. Kelly and myself in conversation. And it's not our lowercase our conversation. It is a greater our, capital O-U-W-R, the musical, our conversation. And my request is that if there are things that you are feeling and questions that you have, if you can use the chat function as a space to put that in there, what I will do is I will track that and I will feed that and fuel that in. So I just want you all to take a moment and reflect upon yourself. What is the question that you want answered? Or what is the thing that is most top of mind for you right now? And if we can put that into the chat, we can have Dr. Kelly start the conversation that we've thought of to share. And if something shifts, we can be facile and be responsive to that specific need. I will also be managing the mute so that we can also limit the background noise. We will also be providing after this call resources that Dr. Kelly has, again, around the wellness piece, and also beautiful practices around ways that we can remain connected in this virtual space. So with that as a background, Dr. Kelly, I'm going to pass it on to you.
Okay, thank you, Eduardo. Yeah, that's beautiful. So some of you don't know me, and you maybe saw the bio, but I'm a naturopathic physician and a Chinese medicine practitioner. I have had a clinical practice for 13 years. So I've seen really thousands of patients who I have been working with to help them achieve vitality and wellness. I specialize in chronic disease, autoimmune disease, chronic Lyme disease, cancer, meaning helping to support patients who are receiving conventional therapy through their cancer treatments. And really, I see my work as a holistic health practitioner as providing the potential for healing on all levels. So there's the physical or the physiological level, there is the emotional level, and there's the spiritual level. And so also for 15 years, I've spent a lot of really blessed time with indigenous healers, both in South and North America. And so ultimately, the way that I see myself is that I work in transformational medicine. So like most of you, like probably all of us, I have been really tuned in and following all the information that we're receiving. I have the benefit of having a mentor of mine who is one of who is a preeminent physician in China, who's on the front lines in Wuhan, in the hospitals, working there and treating patients. In China, what we're not seeing in the news is that traditional Chinese medicine, herbal medicine, is fully integrated in the hospital systems. Traditional Chinese medicine, herbal medicine, is considered part of the national heritage of China. It's part of it is their medical system. And so they see that as the primary system, with Western medicine being an adjunct to that. So I'm receiving information there, which I find really enlightening because it's on the ground with people, where this all began. And it takes it out of the kind of theoretical space into practically what's actually working and going on there. My sister is also an epidemiologist and pediatrician at Johns Hopkins, so I'm receiving in addition to the CDC recommendations, sort of the daily report of what is coming out of Johns Hopkins. So those are the places that I'm following. And I believe that I believe this is a serious epidemic that we need to take seriously, and I think we are. What I am present to is that 3 weeks ago, we never could have imagined a global collective response to anything, right? So there's been a conversation about global warming that we just have not been able to create a response to. And here we are today, 3 weeks later, actually present to the globe creating a collective response. So this does something for our consciousness. It does something in my consciousness. It makes what felt impossible possible. And this, to me, is a key piece of what each one of us, I believe, is being asked to do. How do we make this impossible moment into a possible moment that actually creates a lot of opportunity, creativity? How do we adapt? I will also add that at the same time that I am putting out a response towards what more we can do to help boost our immune system and take care of our lungs, which I'll get to in just a moment here, I'm also managing 3 daughters who are home from school, 5, 7, and 18-year-old, and a husband who's out of work for the next 8 weeks. And so I'm holding all of that at the same time. So I think there's lots of different pieces that we can talk about. We can talk about food, we can talk about supplements, we can talk about, gosh, how do I create a rhythm now? Gosh, how can I create community now? And actually, here we are, creating community. So everything that I'm going to share, I'm going to start just talking a little bit about antivirals. Does that sound like a good place to start, Eduardo? Okay, great.
I think to ground us into some of the practical and the specifics, I think is really useful.
Yes.
And then there are the greater conversations that we can have, which I think a lot of people are talking about, like, how do I focus on work when this is happening? Like, I have no idea. What does work even mean anymore? You know, there's also like, what is there for us to learn? What is this virus teaching us? How do I talk about it with my friends? How do I talk about my family? How am I creating connection? How do I leverage this? You know, can I be with the pain and the anxiety, you know, but also stay positive? Like, what is that muscle that I'm exercising? Right? So again, there are people who've been joining us as well. If you have a certain question or something that's top of mind, something that's really pressing, if you can use that and put it in the chat function, we can then speak to that specifically, like what is the emerging questions that you have. And I think in a practical space, I think, Kelly, looking at your background and your experience, you know, what are some things that we can do to boost our immune systems? What are some resources that we can have? I think, is it also a way to anchor it in something practical and then also open it up to something philosophical?
Great. Yeah, so it sounds like a lot of the questions are less about immune system boosters, because I think we can find all that, but I am going to mention a couple that I think are really important right now. You know, the idea is that we want to boost our, what we call in Chinese medicine, our defensive qi, right? So that we are less susceptible, less vulnerable, not just to the coronavirus or COVID-19, but also to the flu, which right now in New York is at a peak, or any other ailments that come through. And I want to place this in a context that I think is really important to think about. We are at a time where bacterial infectious diseases have really plummeted, and in viral infectious diseases are going up, right? So we've heard about SARS, the swine flu, H1N1, lots more, rotavirus. And so what is, in lieu of having a vaccine that's going to address this, which takes some time to generate, it's really important that we start to, on a regular basis, be taking things that are not only antiviral in nature, but are also helping to boost our own immune system capacity to respond, right? So we're talking about immune system resilience here. A great one that can be taken pretty much all the time is vitamin D. Vitamin D is a potent antiviral, helps to prevent colds and flus, really helps to boost the immune system. And from September through May in New York, I will take 5,000 IUs daily. There's also a fair amount of literature to support much higher doses for acute periods of time. So vitamin D is a favorite of mine.
Kelly, is it vitamin D or vitamin D3? There's also a question, how much vitamin D? I am menopausal. So I think we're not speaking.
Yeah. So what I think we should do, because I know there are lots of questions, and maybe we can encapsulate those questions and send a follow-up communication. But yes, vitamin D, it's called 25OH, is the one that you test for. So when you're looking for vitamin D, pretty much everything that's being sold right now is bioavailable vitamin D. There's a product I like called D-Mulsion, M-U-L-S-I-O-N. It's a vitamin D that is in a liquid form, and vitamin D is a fat-soluble vitamin, which means you have to take it with some fat. So if you have a vitamin D capsule, make sure you take it with a little bit of olive oil or with your dinner. That will help that vitamin D to absorb. And some other options. Great immune system boosters, probiotics, taking regular probiotics. Our gut biome is essential to a healthy, working immune system that has resilience. And so taking a probiotic that has a high parts per billion, you'll see that on the back of the label. It says maybe 95 ppb, and that there are multiple strains in your probiotic. So the way I like to think of it is, with probiotics, you get what you pay for. So typically the pricier ones tend to have more parts per billion and more strains. Also, I like mushrooms, reishi mushrooms, cordyceps, for helping immune system resilience. With this particular virus, what is most concerning, and this is, I think we've all heard this, but what's most concerning is the symptoms that are affecting the lungs, right? So what we're doing as a family is we have eucalyptus oil going all the time in our vaporizer. We're slathering ourselves with eucalyptus oil. Any one of my patients that I know that has any respiratory issues, I'm putting them on specific lung support. Elecampane is a beautiful herb. I will write that in the chat here. Elecampane you can get in tincture form, you can get as a tea. This is great for lung health. There are lots of specific respiratory support formulas that you can find online. And, you know, I like to keep it simple as a practitioner. I don't like to take 30 things. I don't like to recommend 30 things. So I take a couple of things that are boosting my immune system. I make sure I'm eating really well. Lots of colorful vegetables, no sugar. For me, no alcohol. And I'm making sure to get a lot of sleep, getting some exercise daily, getting outside, and and then looking at the lung support piece, and also looking at antivirals. And I haven't mentioned antivirals yet, but there are some specific ones. There are lots of these herbal tincture products, and I think someone's asking about brands here. So Lomatium dissectum is a really potent antiviral tincture. It's unfortunately out of stock everywhere. Even the seeds are out of stock. So I have been looking for seeds to grow this in our medicinal garden. So I'm looking now at other antivirals. There are formulas like Virus Stop formula. This is by Woodstock Herbal Products. Virus Stop. There are Chinese herbal formulas that are antiviral. So I'm happy to just make a short list of all of this. There is already a list on my website. So we can put that link in, right, Eduardo? Yeah. For people to be able to look at that. And I think, you know, just in the interest of time, I know there's so much that we could cover in terms of antivirals. This is a book that I am reading a lot right now. And this book, Herbal Antivirals, actually has a whole section on coronavirus, on infection dynamics, on what viruses are, on how viruses replicate, on how they sense the environment. You know, I think we all learned in biology that viruses aren't living, but they certainly act with a lot of intelligence. And part of the reason that we have a flu vaccine, a new one every single year, is because viruses mutate like crazy. Like they are fantastic at mutating, and they're also fantastic at changing their host's behavior so that the virus can get out into the world even more. A great example is the virus that causes rabies affects the part of the brain of animals that causes them to bite. And through the saliva of biting, then the virus gets transmitted. So this is why it's really important to develop not just these things out here to fight the virus, but to develop this immune system resilience so that we have a system that can respond in an intelligent way.
So I think, Kelly, you know, again, there are a lot of resources that she provides. We'll also add a way for you to reach out with personal questions, specifically in this medicinal space, if you have questions regarding any of the tinctures or any of these homeopathic remedies that you mentioned. I think that, so first of all, thank you for your expertise, and thank you for giving us resources and giving us some practical things that I think people may be thinking, well, what else is there if there is no, if we don't have a, whatchamacallit, a solution, not a solution, but the shot that, now I can't believe I can't remember the word right now. Anyway, and who knows when that's coming, right? That the, thank you, Sarah, that there are other, how else can we be responsive and proactive? And I think there's the physical space looking at holistic medicine, looking at these tools. I know there's some questions about what are the Chinese medical doctors doing in Wuhan? What are they doing in China? How are they adding that to their system? I think we can continue to explore that. And I think that there's also, what is the spiritual and emotional conversation that's emerging too? And how are we also taking care of ourselves, and how are we taking care of community? And I think that that's a natural tipping point to possibly start moving into that, to allow some space for that conversation, knowing that we're not going to answer everything here, but at least we can start creating the connecting points to start having these conversations in collective space.
Right. May I share something there, Eduardo?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I really, when I am considering this virus and our response and feeling into the pulse of what's happening for many people that I love, of course, I'm present to a lot of fear and a lot of anxiety and a lot of, confusion, right? Where is this coming from? What is this? And what I'm aware of in myself is that fear itself can act like a virus, meaning it can come into those kind of open holes that we allow. And so on an emotional level, when I'm thinking about my immune system resilience, I'm thinking about, how do I have courage in the face of fear? How do I make meaning from this? How do I get creative? How do I respond in a caring, generous way? How do I reach out to elders that I know in the community?
Kelly, I'm wondering if people can, elevate it, sparkle or raise their hand if they feel an agreement or alignment with that, if that kind of encapsulates how people and where they're feeling. Okay. I felt that very much, Dr. Kelly, and I know we're trying to create some semblance of engagement while we have people muted.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Eduardo. Yes, and I'm really present with all of you, and and so even the conversation about what should I be taking? Oh my gosh, what product this, what brand that, can start to create even more of that anxiety that we don't want to be adding anxiety on top of anxiety. And so I think an even more important piece here is, how do we come together, right? Is how do we know that loneliness. So here's a crazy reality. A huge Harvard study came out a couple of years ago. They did a qualitative study of people's experience of loneliness in their life. And loneliness has as much of a health risk as smoking 15 cigarettes a day. And this is wild, right? So this is a place we really have to take care of. This is where we really get to see in practical reality how our immune system is affected by how we feel, how we relate to the world. We are social beings. And so really taking care of all those places in ourselves, right? Let's be with the fear. Let's be with the anxiety. Let's acknowledge it, because they're all right here at the table with us. And at the same time, How do we have courage in the face of fear? How do we turn anxiety or worry into a prayer, a collective prayer? You know,
Hmm. That's really resonating with Dr. Kelly. One of the things that I've been reflecting on is like, how do I invite fear into the process as opposed to resisting it and saying that it's not there? It's like, I'm going to be happy. Let me focus on the positive. Let me focus on the joy. What am I grateful for? Denying the elephant in the room, right? Which is like, I don't know what the fuck is going on. I just dropped the F-bomb, but that felt authentic in the moment. Um, and I just think that the fear, I think naming it and welcoming it and just inviting it, actually allows me to be in movement with it, as opposed to continuously keeping it hidden, right? So anyway, I just felt like sharing that, because again, I think that's why we retreat. We don't want to be in the sharing of that. And I think there's a huge opportunity to bring light to our collective fear, our collective insecurity, our collective whatever there is for us to share, so that we can bring light into it.
Totally agreed. And to bring light into, oh my gosh, everyone's home. I don't have any more space for myself. Everyone's stepping on everyone else's toes. I have to create a rhythm for my children so they feel safe and they're in great well-being. And I have to make sure everyone's eating well. And I have, and, right? So I think someone,
I was like, my, it's like, what do? My angels and my guides, they're spiritually distancing too. So I can't commune. How can we also, I'm living in a home with 5 entrepreneurs. We have 5 people who are on Zoom, so the Wi-Fi doesn't work. How do we find the rhythm? We're like doing grounding meditations together to start off our days. What are, I was talking, I think it was, I don't know if it was you, but somebody said, that there is a medicine in this, that there is an opportunity to look at what the medicine is. Like someone was saying, I could have spent I was really trying to avoid being in relationship with my partner, but now I'm stuck with them for 2 months. So I guess we finally have to deal with that, that there is, what happens if my natural rhythm is to do, when everything is stopped, where do I actually commit to really slowing down and not doing anything? Because what I'm being called to do is nothing, as opposed to filling my day with doing things that are actually not anything than me just doing, so that I'm actually not still and slow down.
yeah. I want to invite us all to a thought experiment. So let's imagine, as we're already imagining, that this is our reality for the next 3 weeks. How would you like to look back on these 3 weeks? Let's expand that and imagine that this is our reality for the next 2 months. How do we want to look back on this time? And I've been asking myself this question as you're asking yourself this question, and I'm asking myself this question every day as we're in this changing landscape. Because what I don't want to do is lose this precious time to social media and to media. I know I need to be in isolation. and I'm with my family. And I have a sense of what I think is going to help my immune system. And I could be wrong, but I don't imagine that there's much more in this moment that I can do, at least on that front. Like, I'm not imagining that I'm going to read CNN tomorrow that's going to make me say, oh, now I need to stay in my room alone and everyone else needs to stay out there. You know what I mean? So how do we want to look back on this time that we're getting as a planet? I'm aware that for me, it's asking me to really anchor my practices. It's really asking me to be really clear on what I stand for. It's asking me, I'm someone who does a lot of rituals and a lot of work with people, and I feel my most whole self in community. How do I bring that back to just my family and this online space? Right? But to just my family, and also then just myself. And I'm aware that there's a facing of myself in this process that is a little bit scary. And beautiful at the same time.
Jeff Wallman wrote, I want to deepen my prayer. I don't know, that struck something profound. If this is a time for that, and whatever that means to you, knowing that people here hold all different faith traditions, and connection to spirit, divine, or whatever planet, whatever it is that you feel connected to. I'm just curious what that prayer would be. If this was the time that we had to soft and meditate and reflect and connect deeply with ourselves, with our purpose, with spirit, with whatever. What can this prayer be? It's interesting. Again, I'm in a household. We have, I think there are 5 people and 20 different tarot cards, and I pulled the Hermit yesterday. And there was something fitting in this moment about the retreating in, but also looking out simultaneously. That it doesn't have to be one or the other. And I feel like one of the things that's that the slowing down is allowing is a deeper connection to self, also to your purpose, perhaps a realignment in the face of the doing, and an opportunity to be responsive to whatever it is that is emerging in the moment, because that moment is shifting. Like the reality of the world that I thought was yesterday is not the day before that or the day before that. And I feel like it's constantly changing and evolving, which is giving me the gift of the practice of presence. Kelly, there's some things that you had shared of practices that I think in the community space, virtual community space, I think are really powerful. One of them that I think, and I think considering also the way that this virus impacts the elderly, And I saw something that came out today that was like, millennials beware, it's impacting everyone. So just because you're a millennial doesn't mean you have carte blanche around this. It is impacting millennials as well. And, you know, a way in which we have a disregard for elder, you know, in our culture, at least in Western culture and American culture, it's like, let's cart them away and put them elsewhere. But there's this beautiful practice that you had with, I don't know if it's with your father, that I thought was really beautiful in a virtual space where we can practice social distancing, you know, and also create space. And what is it that you're doing with your father?
Yeah, so my father is 89 with probably all, you know, with yeah, he's a beautiful man, and weak lungs, weak heart. So poor guy. I mean, I call him every day and he is just bored. He's bored. He's used to going out in New York. He's a swinging single at 89. Yeah, it's amazing. He goes to jazz concerts, and he's an incredible. Yes, he's very active, and he is home alone. So we are now doing like a 25-minute online story hour with Papa. That's what we call him. And that way the girls get to see him, he gets to see the girls. It punctuates our day because my 5 and 7-year-old get excited about it, you know. There's something about seeing the face that's different than just hearing the voice. So yeah, I have a friend who's been putting flyers with her phone number in all of her neighbors' mailboxes saying, let me know if you need me to pick you up some groceries, right? So, gosh, we can start to get to know our neighbors, not through the hand, but through these kind of, through the heart, I guess, through the heart, you know, and through these gestures. You know, I'm sure, like many of you, I've read a lot of stories about World War II in England, and how everybody had, it seemed like everybody had a wartime garden, they were called, right? So people were learning, maybe relearning how to garden, and we've gotten a little bit distanced from our plant friends. This is another opportunity maybe to reach out to those people that we know who are gardeners and ask them to teach us. I had a phone conversation with about 25 millennials on Wednesday, and I realized that many of them don't know how to cook. And so I am connecting them to a couple of my friends who are fabulous chefs. One of them is on this call, Jill Pettyjohn, if she's still here. This creates these, it creates openings for us to learn, to remember, you know, these foundational things: how to garden, how to cook, what should I be buying, what food should I be buying, you know, root vegetables and grains, they have a long shelf life. So just thinking about things in that way, I think can be really supportive.
Sarika just wrote that she does an hour of prayer singing time in the morning with her, I think with her parents. So it's like 3 generations of singing and prayer. And I think that what I love about this, Dr. Kelly, too, is, I don't know about other people, but I'm finding myself with a lot of free time. like everything, you know, we were supposed to be in Australia this week for 2 weeks. You know, I had a trip to Morocco in the middle of April. You know, everything that had filled up the space is now empty. And now even the ritual of work doesn't exist anymore. So there's an opportunity to create new rituals. And I feel like creating these new rituals around connection and family, and, you know, like having story time with Pop, you know, I know my parents are with my sister in Boston. My twin brother lives in Hawaii. You know, what are the ways in which we can create virtual family time? You know, maybe over a meal and create dinner. What are the ways in which we can use this time to also reach out to those people who we know and love, but who are not a member of our present moment? You know, they're not in the present day-to-day of our doing, but are people who we carry and treasure and cherish, who we're out of touch with, that we can take the time and space to reconnect and re-engage and love. And I feel like that's, I feel compelled to, like there are things that are breaking, and I think there's a huge opportunity for love of ourselves, love of planet, love of all of it to emerge and filter in. You know, Nancy just wrote she's having a hard time just being. She just scheduled 4 calls yesterday, 3 today. Can't get enough nourishing learning. Yes, nourish yourself. And I think that this is an opportunity to really just dance in the emerging of whatever this new thing is. And we just don't know how long it's going to be.
Yeah.
So
I can, sorry, go ahead, Eduardo.
No, I just want us to start thinking about how we're landing our collective plane here. Kelly, first of all, I want to acknowledge you and thank you, and you know, for being such a light in this conversation, and for really sharing your expertise with such love and such generosity.
Thank you.
And you know, I would love for you to have a moment. You know, it seems like there's some final thoughts that you may have. Obviously, how people can reach out to you personally. What are the ways that they can engage with you before we kind of create a container to wrap our conversation today?
Beautiful. Thanks. Let's just come back to our breath for a moment. I think this is the first of many new conversations we're going to have. And we're all in this together. We're all in this together on all levels, right? So I think that for some of us, there's more space. For some of us, this feels like there's a ramping up. I certainly have not felt more space yet, and I'm looking forward to that. But we're in a transition time, and to also just be gentle with yourself. And something that's been shared with me that I find really powerful is we can use water as medicine. So if it's a day that you're needing some gentleness, some patience with yourself, take a glass of water and pray that intention into your water. Remind yourself that you can be your own medicine, and we can use this beautiful medicine of clean water, you know, to help us to change our consciousness. So much love to you all, wherever you are on this planet. on this beautiful mother here. Let's make this the most sacred of times and allow ourselves to be with it all. I think that this will be a time that we will look back on. And I'm reminding myself actually that it would be pretty valuable to journal right now. Pick that back up.
Shabbat had it already. Shabbat was like, I got my journal, work.
Yeah. So there are some resources that have been listed in our chat group that will all go away as soon as this call ends. So I'm going to just highlight a couple. I know you can find Eduardo on Instagram. I'm also on Instagram at Dr. Kelly Jennings. I'm posting every day a quarantine idea, food for thought. I welcome you to do the same on any forums that you're on. Let's be voices for love, hope, and inspiration all together. We can be bearers of the light and also share our vulnerability. There is a resource here for anyone that has questions about food and cooking. Jill Pettyjohn. You can just Google Jill Pettyjohn, Pettijohn.
And Dr. Kelly, what I'll do is we have the email addresses for the people who registered for the thing. I'll take the chat and I'll also send that in the email, the body of that, so people can look through and source things that may be relevant to them as well. I'll also include your articles, which I think are really useful. And your website again is?
thesourceforhealing.com.
So it's thesourceforhealing.com. I'm going to write that, sourceforhealing.com. So that's a great resource for you and to Dr. Kelly. And as we close out, I just wanted to, again, thank you, Dr. Kelly, again. I see people on this call that I'm connected to in so many various spaces in my life. People have, Sarah Camascoli, I haven't seen you in years. And it's such a beautiful gift to see you there. New friends, old friends, people who I've never met before, but now you're friends through Dr. Kelly that are also on this call. What I want to share with you is that I have the privilege in the work that I do as the founder of a company that is all around thought leadership, specifically around thought leadership of diverse voices, and namely women as leaders. Dr. Kelly was a participant in one of our Fearless Force programs. There are other women here in this place who are also participants of that. What we're going to be doing is going forward every Tuesday and Thursday at 4 p.m. We're going to feature one of our fearless women in an hour-long conversation, seminar, workshop, whatever. There are an array of women in our network. One of them, Genti Grace, is doing a 30-day writing challenge for everyone who's wanted to write a book. So you can join that. That's for free. There are people who, are talking about, we have a woman who's a cook. Maybe we'll do cooking healthy, cooking show, various ways in which we can, again, create community and be of service with each other. And that we're going to open to everyone in the network. So it's free. It's just a way to be in connection and be in creation together. And an opportunity to create ritual and connecting points for yourselves and ourselves collectively in this time. So we can get ourselves off of our Instagram feeds and our, news updates, which are repeating the same thing over and over again. It seems like, Dr. Kelly, you're raising your hand for something.
Yes. How many are we? Do you have a count?
On this call right now?
Yes.
Right now there are 32, but I think we had over 60 or 70 people at one point on the call.
Okay, beautiful.
So with that, I just want to take a moment for us to ground back in. And I'm going to go back into gallery view. And I don't know if there's a way, for some of you, you don't have your video. If there's a way in this moment that you can turn your video back on, just to be in a space to see the eyes and the humanity that is on this call, you know, to connect through our screens, you know, and acknowledge that there are other human beings in the world, you know, all over the world in this space together. You know, may we ground into our bodies. May we connect to the source of our life. May we step into light, and may we show up continuously aware and in service of ourselves and everyone else around us, generating and being beacons of love. Thank you so much today for being here. I want to acknowledge that there were moments like, I don't know, I'm going to get this totally wrong. I have no idea how to set this thing up. We're, you know, and all the ways in which we can surrender the not knowing. And I know that there are lots of things that are on your plates of ideas of ways to generate. And my invitation is to continue to say yes to how you can show up and to be of service and be beacons of light. So I'm going to do a quick little screenshot, you know, of everybody who is here. So we're just going to smile. 1, 2, 3. Thank you so much. And if there's any final reflections or anything that you want to share in the comment box as you leave, any wish, any prayer, any insight, anything that you want to offer, please feel free to use the chat function. I'm going to stay here for a couple more minutes as people exit, you know, and if we started with a little, you know, what's his name? The Beatles, you know, let's see what else emerges here. In